Everyone, welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training. I am Richard Carlton, creator of FMTrain.tv. So real quick, the upcoming broadcast schedule. So exploring all the functions in the FileMaker platform. We're going to continue that today, tomorrow. Calvin, it's not Calvin's picture, but Calvin will be doing Wednesday with Let. Now, I also got with Calvin on doing another session on While, and that'll be, I think, probably the following Wednesday if Margaret gets that scheduled. All right, so let's talk about FileMaker today a little bit. It is what the show's about. I'm going to come over here to the FileMaker platform. So we were talking about get functions, right? And this issue with get functions, and there's a ton of them. Let's talk about get functions. So if I go to the search for get functions, some of these we have covered. Some of these are high traffic areas. Some of these are great. There are, and this came up the other day, that some of these get functions are return information. They only return information, and I think Stu mentioned this, something I forgot. There's also get functions in FileMaker. If we go into the FileMaker platform briefly, if I just say open, say we open Margaret's CMS where she's working in her stuff. So I go over here to the live streams. I say show the upcoming events. Once again, this is the material. These are the records that are coming up on the live stream, and Margaret's working on scheduling stuff in the future. That's why start seeming to be incomplete. But if you go into like script workspace and we come over here and then we type a new script, I'm hitting new script right here. We're just going to call it, and it was funny because the engineers at Claris were doing the same thing. They would write this, delete me. So if they see it and you don't remember what it's for, just delete it. Right, that tells you that you meant it to be deleted. And the rule of thumb is if I don't remember what it's for, its usefulness is already over, right? So as opposed to saying something that, it's a test for something and today and we walk away. So delete me. So then we talk about set field, we set a field, and then we're going to go over to these functions over here. I specify a field, doesn't really matter what it is. Although container horizontal, let me just do it with a new file because it suddenly occurred to me that I might start doing destructive with this, right? And I'm like,
please do not
please don't
delete
destroy
my
Margaret's
CMS
database, right? Yeah, gets. Well, let's call it gets. So I'm going to have text, field, number, field, just in case this stuff comes up. And if you have questions along the way, please ask. Date is a date, create. Time is a time, create, container is a container, and create, and then timestamp would be the last one. Once again, timestamp create. Okay, done. All right, so then we go over here and we have this stuff and we can go into scripts and we can play with this stuff. But the issue was that the get functions are not all together. And if you start scrolling through and looking for like, hey, there's this get something that does get something about a container. And you start looking for it within the get functions over here, and you go through this list, you're never going to find something in here that says get container or something or another, right? It doesn't really work that way. And that's because there's these other get functions where you put parameters in, like you tell what container to look at, and some other parameters, and it comes back with more stuff. These are kind of one-shot get functions that you can't really give it too much clarification on. They'll take your current context, mostly they're context related, what layout you're on, what record you're on, what server you're on. There's a lot of server ones in here, like to get the current time or timestamp from the server. Very interesting, right? In fact, that brought up an interesting thing because a lot of people will put, like they'll say, create a new record, but they're in Pacific time or they're in an East Coast time or they're in European or GMT or something like that. And it's 6 p.m. here. It's not necessarily 6 p.m. anywhere else. And that would be a nice field to have, would be a date field that's kind of universally happy and it automatically adjusts no matter where you're at. So you get this get current host. Is it host timestamp or is it host address? But there's some of these that are around that are host related. Or is it the time host, Margaret? You have the current, there it is, current time. Where's that at, Margaret? You want to help me with this?
It's right there. You just scroll right past get current time.
Host timestamp. And if you're using a Linux server, the host time is always GMT on FileMaker server. That might change at some point in the future. But if you build, like I have a server for BVA, Big Valley Aviation, they have their own FileMaker server that we're doing testing on. And that server is always GMT. And I'm like, why is this server like many hours off, right? Because I want the server to be as close to me as possible for the best possible performance. But why is it say it's like in India or so? The time's like +8 or something. I'm like, what is wrong with this? And I went to Jacob and said, well, it looks like it's GMT. I said, Jacob, did you do a bad job of setting up the server? He's like, no. I'm really good server setter upper person. He goes, it's because FileMaker, when they build their applications, it always builds it that way. The Linux FileMaker server always is going to get the GMT time, right? It doesn't matter where it's installed or what planet it's on. It's always going to be GMT. So pretty interesting. That would be a good one to add, like date, kind of like auto adapting or auto universal, but it seems to me that would be kind of an easy one. But you'd have to add that as a field definition, and I don't know if you could do that without changing the file format. That was the thing. So we're at DevCon, and Clay Mackel, who's like the godfather of the engine, the engine at the Claris, started asking, well, would you like this, or would you like this? And he goes, well, if we want these things, we have to do a file format change, right? Like legitimately, because the file format won't support this XYZ feature. And so that all the developers in there instantly thinking about whether they want to recommend this course of work course, because file format changes means that, one day you're going to be on the 20 server, 21 server, and then the file has to go through an upgrade process to work on 22, and it won't go backwards, generally speaking, right? And I'm picking numbers arbitrarily, and they're not doing this right now. I'm just saying if they did, the file format changes conversion process, it should do it automatically. It should be invisible largely to you other than you saying, yes, do this. But just keep in mind, that's always this trade-off that comes on when sometimes we ask for things, right? Claire says, we can give them to you, but they come with they come with a penance. A penance is required, right? You have to pay for that thing that you're going to get, right? All right, so if we go through the get functions up here at the top, understand there's some get function. We'll cover these on a different day, but let's just run through these. And I want people to yell out. So I want you to be engaged on YouTube, Twitch, Discord. So account privileges, extended privileges, really quick. What are extended privileges? These are anything that has to do with sharing the data from within the FMP12 file, right? So privileges are the roles people log in using password. Well, the account is that. An account is attached to a privilege set of what they can see. And then an extended privilege is what that account can share in terms of it being shared anywhere. So if you want a FMP12 file on the FileMaker server, won't be shared at all unless the FM app, is it FM app? Extended privileges on there. If I click on extended privileges, they'll probably talk about some of these. Yeah, FM app, right? So this used to be a big certification test question. So FM app, web direct, things like that, right? FileMaker Go and FileMaker Pro both use that extended privilege, which is really kind of interesting. Account group name, this is a groups. If you're part of groups, this has to do with Active Directory and the OAuth stuff. I'm just going to set that aside, but that's a separate conversation for that. Account name, we use this all the time. What name is the person? Like if I use Richard Carlton 1234 as my login credentials, Richard Carlton is the account name, okay? Account privilege set name. So once again, you have the account, the username password, which is individual typically for the individual. Then you have the privilege set, which has a name. And then you have the extended privileges. So this just tells you, the name of the person, right? Pretty straightforward. Should be the name of the person or something like that. Privilege set. Oh, yeah, privilege set. Well, correction. The account name is their name. The privilege set is so the default privilege sets are God mode, which is admin. Then you got data entry, right? And then you have read only, which you saw right here. So full access. Oh, okay, so it's going to return privilege set. Yeah, full access, admin. Full access. I always mess that up. I always think about admin being, and a lot of times RCC, we use the word admin for that as the account name for the full access privilege set, right? And sometimes even in my head, I get those twisted up.
So wait, because I know that like full access and data entry only.
All right, let's just jump over to security. Maybe today we're just not going to go too much farther than security. So let's talk about this real quick. File, manage, database security. So it comes up with this like junior rookie layout right here, whatever. I'm just going to say advanced settings. So these are the privilege sets. This is really mislabeled right here. These are really the accounts, okay? Advanced settings, it should be 4 tabs. It should be 4 tabs. So it should be 4 tabs. If you're here, there should be 4 tabs. Accounts, privilege sets, which apply to the account, extended privileges, which get attached to the privilege set, I think, as well. And then full access is really kind of a different area. That should be under like a different, I mean, I guess it's under security, but it's really the whole idea of one FMP12 file trusting another FMP12 file, if that makes sense. They two can look at each other and they trust.
Oh,
or they,
okay. So that's like, okay, yes.
right? Because back in the days of FileMaker 6 and 7 or whatever, before this was in here, I could, if say we had the starting point, the our FM starting point was a 2-file solution, okay? And file A was called CRM and the other one was Trusted Buddies or some other FMP12 file. You could, someone like Wimwood DeCourt from Soliant and Josh Sherman and some other people were busy breaking into databases using this technique. They would remove this file and put another file in that was named the same way, right? So this file here, in the old days, all would do is look for the file name at that location. That was their entire security, right? So if this is CRM and this is Trusted Buddies or something .fmp12, and you remove it and put your own Trusted Buddies .fmp12 file in there, it would be trusted. And if you had admin access over here, that would allow you to look through into this file and get data out of it. Oh, so what you do is you have your two files together and you tell it this file here and this file here, and you say you're going to trust each other. And what they're going to literally do is like one of those movies where they cut themselves with a knife in their palm and they swap blood and they shake hands and spit on their hands, and it blesses those two files with blood that they trust each other. So if you try to swap it out, it goes, hey, this ain't trusted. Someone's doing hokey stuff and it won't work. Does that make sense, Margaret? Jesse?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great.
But I don't want to speak for other people.
Okay, so this is accounts. Then the privileges attached to the account. So you set up these accounts, and then when you're over here, like if I say the account is called, Ken's, pilot flying, or Ken's, flying, or something like that. Ken's flying 5. It doesn't matter what it is, but normally it would be something like sales or marketing, sales. We could have, or maybe you have the blue sales team and the red sales team, and they can do different stuff. So then you can say they can have access to this, and they can have access to this, and they can do this and this and this and whatever. And you say, okay, then you've got blue sales. And in part of blue sales, you come over here, is extended privileges. So they can use WebDirect. That's great. And look, it's turned off right here by default. That's so awesome. FM app, which is Pro and Go, is turned off. Oops. So you could build a file that someone can't access. Well, you could access it with Pro and Go, but you could turn it off for like the sales team. So the sales team can only access it with WebDirect. You follow? Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of magical, I guess.
Well, for you, Margaret, because you hang out with me, we think of Pro and Go as the default clients, and WebDirect is what we use if we have a gun to our head, because we can't get there any other way, right? But some people really like WebDirect fundamentally, which is fine.
No, I get that, but it's weird to have literally not you're forced to use WebDirect. That's kind of a different story than having the option.
Okay, back up. If they are all off and you turn these on and you activate this account, you go to your sales team. So say we do it like this, and there's nothing on over here, but I say you can add or edit all tables. You can all modify. You can see all the tables. You can see all the, because most of these are you can view them all or you can edit them all. So maybe you don't want to have them edit the layouts, and maybe they can create or edit tables, view only in all tables. And this is just, those are records, correct. Create and edit records in all tables. Create, edit, and delete. Yeah, normally you want to delete, but you restrict that. But you could have a script that would do it that would bypass that. Remember, this is security setting. We could go down a rabbit hole with this, right? But you say something like this and they can execute the scripts or do whatever, right? So you set this up and you even turn these on over here, whatever, right? But then you come down here, manage, these are all off. So you say, okay. Then I'm going to say, okay. And then now we're back over here. Really, once again, 4 tabs would be better, right? Once again, that was so I come over here and I say, it's going to be a new account called Ken Art, something like that. And so then we say, what's his credentials? He's on blue sales. And so I give Ken, I say, Ken, the password is going to be, password is 1234. So 1234. And we should turn this on, it's on the server. And you give this to Ken. and I'll say allow. And so Ken gets that username password, goes to file, he can't get in. And then he calls you to tell you that you're an idiot because it didn't work. And of course, being a good FileMaker developer, you should always test what you do before you do it. Sometimes it's really simple, but I'm just telling you in this case right here, is that admin is no password, but Ken would use this. But if you go to this, you come over here and you say new privilege set, or you say advanced settings, then you can edit this privilege set here. You say edit, no web direct, no ODBC access, which is SQL, Oracle kind of stuff. Then you got FileMaker Network, which is Pro, just say Pro and Go. Then this is the sleep functionality. You can sleep and come back and it doesn't force you to re-authenticate. But if you're using a phone and it re-authenticates your face, or if you're on a Mac laptop with the fingerprint thingy on there, which is really awesome, that's great. And these are other things in here that you can do as well. So understand that you can lock someone out or give them very narrow access. So we were supposed to get functions and we've got down through 2 of them.
Well, basically, so that means that what? Get account returns Kenart, and then get account privileges returns blue sales.
Correct. So privilege set name is blue sales in the and then the account name right here is going to be Kenart. Okay, makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
Account type will be FileMaker file. This gets into active other authorizations, because remember, in the world of FileMaker, Claris FileMaker, it can either authenticate itself or you can pass authentication off to a third-party service, right? And Claris wants to get it eventually where Claris ID is awesome. It's not yet, but when it's awesome, then everyone wants to use it. In fact, I'll be down at Claris tomorrow telling them how to make Claris ID awesome so we all love it. So yeah, that's all part of what I do with them. So anyway, so yeah, this tells you what that's about. We go down the next one. You got get active field contents. And Calvin covered some of this, the tech stuff yesterday, but tells you what was highlighted, right? Returns the contents of the field that is in focus, of the field that's in focus. So there's a field in focus that returns that data, not the highlighted data, but that's in here. That's in here. So it's one of those things, I know it's in here, but I have to kind of hunt for it. That's my goal for you, is to know that it's in there, but not necessarily know what it is, because that would require a big commitment to flashcards and stuff. Active field name, active. So active is what's in focus. Focus means that you've taken the mouse and you've targeted and clicked on it. That's focus. You can have focus on Go too. Go can have focus. But there's different states of the mouse states, right? Goes back to Apple human interface guidelines, things like that. But there's like hovering it over, right? Hover over with the mouse. So if I hover over with the mouse over the word returned here, notice the cursor changed there a little bit. So the operating system is doing this. You hovered over, and I'm going to change the little cursor icon, right? And so FileMaker can do that with some things. But remember, on Go, it's a finger, and it can't tell that your finger's hovering over it, but not really on it yet. Maybe with that, with your fingers, all the finger stuff, right? So that's that, once again, in focus, the Vision Pro, it can tell when you're trying to click and do things, and it sees your fingers, and it takes that and applies it into the Vision Pro. I don't know if they ever put that in the iPad or phone, but without that, you only have, the field can be on screen, the field can be in focus, or the object can be in focus because someone has actually touched it or clicked on it. But the hovering over there only would work with the Vision Pro and a computer, Mac or Windows, that has a mouse. So the mouse is over it, but I haven't clicked it yet. When you click on it, and of course it didn't highlight, but I clicked, the operating system knows that shit now is in focus. And that's what the focus is. We'll talk about focus. Okay. Other questions, Margaret?
Nope, I don't see questions, but I think that people are listening.
So active layout object name, so you can name objects. We've talked about that in layout mode on the right pane of the left panel of the position panel, right? Active portal row number, super interesting, helpful. So if you're in a portal and it's active, once again, active means in focus. Claris doesn't say in focus. That's what in focus and active mean the same thing in our world, I think, for the most part. Active record number. Okay, that's not so much a spot on the screen. It's just the whole layout is attached to a record generally. Active repetition number. This is repeating fields. This is if you're trying to make it your coworker's life's hell. Just use repeating fields everywhere. That'll be awesome. Active selection size. So active selection size is 4. I'm pretty sure. We could test it. We'll see if I know what I'm doing here, Margaret. You want to test this? This is like we could play Jeopardy and see if how many of these that I get right.
Where I back up whether or not you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So if there's no selection, active field returns 0. In FileMaker WebDirect, this function is not supported and returns empty string. Yeah, see, that gets back into these things with WebDirect, right?
So wait, what? It returns what you're highlighting, or returns how many characters you highlighted?
It should returns the number representing the how many characters selected. That's why I said over here it was 4. So that's 2. That's 3. Now you can get the selection wherever that's probably in here, active selection. That should be SEL, right? But the active selection size is 3. Okay. However, it doesn't work in WebDirect. And then in FileMaker Go, this may return an inaccurate value if the selected text is in a concealed edit box. Yeah, but concealed edit box is also in Pro too, right? So that's one of these little weird outlier buggies that pops up. Because if you're trying to get the selection side, remember concealed is where you type in like some sort of secret string, not so much like a password because that's a bad idea, but like, you know, like a social security number or a credit card number or something that's supposed to be secure. And you only show and it turns into dots or bullets or whatever it does. Well, normally if you have 10 characters in your password or whatever that string is, the bullets will be different numbers, like 5 bullets or 8 bullets or 13 bullets. It won't really necessarily show you the exact number. Generally, it'll mislead you on purpose. It's a security feature. So selecting and counting, trying to count those characters, it seems to me a fool's errand. Fancy way of saying probably don't do that, because I would expect it to return inaccurate data in general. Active selection start. This should be the position of the start. Returns the number representing the starting character if it's like text. So if I go this and I run that function, I'm going to get 3. Not it's starts at position 3, right? Right, Margaret?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, allow abort state. Okay, this is where you test whether you allow the user to abort the script that's running, the process that's running, right? And so by default, FileMaker scripts will be error capture is not on, which is really error suppression, not so much capture, but it's error suppression is not on. And allow abort is, or disable, what was it said? Allow user, normally it's allow user abort, right? But this is get allow, yeah. So it says, if the script step is called allow user abort, so you're saying allow user to cancel script, and by default it's normally on, yes. You could turn it off, which is fine unless you write a script that goes infinitely in a loop and then the person has to force quit and crash FileMaker to get out of it, right? So this allows you to run a get function to see if they have an abort state that's on or off. But if you wrote the script and you know what's going on, then you would know whether it's on or off, I think. I've never, ever used this.
Would you use it to like sort of figure out if like the person before you was using?
No, it's the current script state. So I don't know where this gets used at. Sometimes they build this stuff, and clearly someone who's much smarter than I, like Chris Moyer or someone, or one of these other Web to Court people, they Garrett, Christian, they write a script that I don't. So there's some sort of weird edge case where this becomes interesting, but allows me to also cover about allow user aborts. Okay? So allow formatting bar state. Returns a 1 if the formatting bar is allowed to be visible or not. So in FileMaker, we're talking about the visibility of the bar, and we have a solution that went, I guess we closed it. And so up here, this is the status toolbar. That is, this bar right here is the formatting bar. Okay, the names of these bars change and go because they're not really perfectly aligned in same fake capability. But this bar right here, this bottom one is formatting. Notice I turn it on or off, but you can script it to keep users from doing that. Okay, that they can't get into that. So maybe you show only this up here, but you don't want them to get into that A right there. Okay. Next, any questions?
Yep, that makes sense. I don't see any questions at the moment.
Allow
so-
user report may be useful if the scripts are written as a universal subscript. Yeah, so yeah, it's if it's in you're in the same script, NJ, but what NJ from Australia, who's really sharp, he's done some really tricky demos, and his brain is probably about twice the size mine is. It's pretty impressive. He goes if you have a parent script or if you have an arsenal of subscripts that you might call, like Margaret in Big Valley, we write log entries all the time. So the log entries is a generic thing. We just pass it a parameter and we tell it to run, and it does this whole log, right? So, but if you call it from a bunch of different places, you might need to know if the user board is allowed on or off on the previous script. That brings up a really...
so if you're stacking scripts, okay.
Yeah, but it's interesting because okay, now you got me wondering about this, because allow user abort, when you turn on or off, if it jumps to a subscript, NJ, does it pass that down? Like if you say, same for get error capture on, then you call a subscript, is that error capture on still preserved in the subscript, or does it get reset? I'm asking you because it's not one that okay, David, several people are answering him. I'm going to say, I think it's preserved until the script stops. I thought it was. I think it stays for a subscript. Well, then it would inherit the behavior. See, that's the thing. When we call subscripts, we normally assume that they keep the behavior or the specific settings of the parent script, right? However, if you have a local variable and you call a subscript, that local variable doesn't go through, right? Global variable does, but a local variable doesn't. So what else does and doesn't? And sometimes I forget about these things. So that's why it's interesting. But think about these things when you call. Margaret, so if you call a subscript, generally I think it inherits the behavior, right?
Well, I don't actually, well, I'm going to put a pin in that because I have questions about that. That's not related
About
to the
what?
current today's topic.
About
Script inheritance.
Script inheritance. That might be another live stream topic. So moving down, application architecture talks about whether it's Mac or Windows or ARM. You know, the Apple Silicon returns, Apple Silicon returns Apple Silicon. Okay. So that's interesting if you're trying to determine what kind of app you're running. You can build a FileMaker iPad app that runs on Apple Silicon. We could do it right now, right? Or you could download FileMaker Go and run it right on here, right? Which is crazy. But then if you had a get function, you'd say, what kind of devices or what kind of architecture is this? And it could come back for ARM64 for Go running on a device. But if it's a Mac with Silicon, it'll return that, or it'll say Intel, right? It might say Mac or Intel or whatever it would say if it was a i7 or i5 processor or whatever you're using. That's interesting. Yeah, David Angel and NJ, my thought on that's a good one, but there are things that don't go between a parent script and a child script, and that might be a good conversation. Application language, since I don't speak lots of languages, I don't particularly worry about these. However, this right here, I'm thinking that these are the default languages that Claris supports, but I need to update.
I think the other support comes from MBS. I feel like MBS makes
No. It's Winsoft takes the FileMaker. This is a Hansa question, but it makes
got it.
The Russian, then the Hebrew and the Arabic, and they make all those languages for FileMaker, right? And then they resell them and make the money on that. So application version, right, returns what version you're going to get. Description returns a version Pro and the version. So if it's Pro, or then you have WebDirect Engine. If it's the PSOS or SASE, that's what you get for that one. ODBC server. I think most time you get this if it's PSOS server.
When did you get server? I thought that like the server client was basically a pro client. So if you actually asked it, wouldn't it tell you?
A web publishing engine might be for WebDirect. Might be WebDirect, right?
Okay.
That's probably where that one's at. That's probably a WebDirect one, right? So, and then the server, if you go back, like if we open, I don't want to get too far off in the weeds here, but I got a FileMaker here, I got a recent, I go to Big Valley Aviation, and we take a look at their log entry, right? It becomes issue with logs for the most part, because a lot of the logs that we do, I send off to the server to write the log. We need more when I write log entries. I write up in a JSON array into a script parameter, and I pass it to PSauce for the server to create the log for me, so I don't have to create the record, upload the record, ship the record, all that kind of stuff. I don't have to do that with the at the end. So I'm going to go to the end here, come down to the end, last record. So it says created by server version. So I'm guessing that is that part of it. If I say server version, if I go to the field definitions, log, server version, yeah. So well, you know what the script number is in there, Margaret? The scripts, you go to scripts, it was 3100. Was that what it was? 3100?
Yeah, 31 something.
3100, right? Log entry called via PSauce. Okay, here we go. So here's the get functions right here. Practical application, get current date, current time. Log account name, we trapped it as the log for the account. We set that in a variable. We set that from the script parameter. Client name from that. Privilege set. Client software, get server version, get server num. So these were set in the script parameter that we called. So we need to go to that it's a lot of this is coming across in the JSON array. Whoops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close that, where we like start up, when we start the database up, we say, where is the startup script? And we call the PSauce to tell it that it finished doing something. Perform the log entry, right? Perform 3100, call script, perform script. This one's local, not perform script on server. But the JSON array is still right here. Oh, there's the monkey bread working correctly. So we come down here, we pass it server, host name, there's the host name of the server, server version, host application version, okay? And then this is get as number. So this one doesn't have the word server in it, right? So if we go back over to get functions, wherever they went, way over here, what was this called? This was a get application version, get host application version. So.
Well, you have a get application version right there, well, but only for the client app.
Yeah, so the application version is the client app side. So what does this say? It's a pro. I'm not sure what the question was. When we get server over here, I don't know when. Am I confusing that? Anyway, so this is what you're playing with. So you got that. Whenever you see the word host, and there's a bunch of host ones in here. If we go back to host, go to host application version, the host IP address, the host name, right? And then I would think it would be host timestamp, but they actually call it current host timestamp, right? So the word current in there, right? Questions, comment, perhaps for a good live stream, beget language version, and watch something you don't remember. Get host is for the server. Yeah, exactly. So that's that part of it. The trick is that you can run this stuff on PSauce on the server. So the question is, what does it do on that end of things? It's one of those things. Just keep in mind that there are things that will test the client, and there will be things that will test the server, okay? But if you tell PSauce to check your client information, it can't reverse dip to do that. You have to roll that all up on the client when you call the PSauce script. So if you go to the server out of the blue and you don't give it any context or anything, and you say, PSauce, tell me what kind of client is running, it doesn't know what on Mac, Windows, iPhone, iPad. It doesn't know any of that stuff. You have to pre-bag that, roll that up in the parameter, hand it to PSauce, then it will include that as part of that operation, which is what you see over here. So we roll up the client information here, right? So what I need to do is I'm going to escape that. I'm going to go to another one where we did this. Right audit trail, PSauce right here. So let's take a look at what this one does. And this may or may not be accurate or correct, but as it generates this JSON, it's doing this work before. So this is generated before the PSauce script fires off, Mark. Does that make sense? It generates all this.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is the parameter that it's a block of text. It gets dumped on the server, right? Makes sense?
Yes.
So you've got the system platform, the host. And so when you say host, and you're at the client level, it makes sense. But if you say host and you're on the server, that's one of those moments where you're like, okay, is it going to identify itself or what is it going to do, right? So anyway, but yes, this is the way we write the logs. I'm very happy with how this works for the most part. Okay, moving along. Questions? Get the host. No, we're good on that start stuff. I'm gonna close that. Close that. Close that. Go back to this right here. Moving along. So we were at the top. I'm gonna go back to where we were in here. Get. Application version, pretty straightforward. CacheFileName. Okay, this is good. This is fairly new. I've never seen this before, so I just ran into one. I'm pretending like, hey, I know what this is. I've seen this. This is like pretty new, right? Get CacheFileName returns the name of the cache file for the current active file. If the current calculation is stored, the specified context, the file is evaluating that for server-side scripts, WebDirect, this function is unsupported and returns an empty value. So, for example, it might return that. I don't know. This is like a base elements. This is put in here for base elements, or maybe Vince Manano, who's a beeswax guy. He does the inspector product with beeswax. I talked to him. He actually won a big time lifetime achievement award at DEF CON or in Claris Engage. He won a big award there for that. That was pretty great. But he works on a kind of competing product. There's really three products that are database utility product. There's base elements, the not the plugin, but the application that does the utility app, what I use. Then there's a product that's the FM perspective, right? From Proofgeist. And then there is the Inspector Pro from Vince Manano. So these people are always asking for these little things. Like, none of us need this, but if you see a GIF function, either it's made for someone smarter than you or me, or someone who has a utility that supports the FileMaker platform, but they need that data from Claris before they can do something that Claris considers useful. Does that make sense? Claris wants these third-party companies to be successful, right? And so as a result, sometimes they'll put functions in to support them directly. And that's why I was like, what the hell? Get cache file path. Once again, same different day. Get repetition number calculations has to do with repeating fields. Please don't use those. If you have a problem with them, don't call me. Connection attributes. Okay. So returns the name of the current files host, a certificate authority, blah, blah, blah. So example, if the host is named group server, the SSL was XYZ, it'll return, oh, okay. So it tells you about the SSL certificate.
Oh, so who gave you your SSL certificate? But it tells you?
Yeah, because you can get them. Oh, by the way, for those of you interested in this, most of you are not, but Jacob Taylor and Wim DeCorder are interested. You know, there's that free SSL service that generates an SSL certificate like every 90 days, I think. It was $0. What's the name of that free SSL service for your website, stuff like that?
I don't remember the name.
No, I know you don't. Right now you have to buy an SSL certificate and you have to pay for that, but there's this free service that does these things. Jay gonna have to talk about that, but Claris is talking about doing that in the next version of FileMaker Server. So you could get an SSL certificate set up, and you have to pay for the setup to get it configured, which is the same as it is now anyway. But you don't have to pay for the SSL certificate itself, which is $200-300 anyway. And that could save you some money in the next version of FileMaker Server. That's kind of nice.
Oh, I found it. It's Zero SSL and Let's Encrypt are the two companies.
Let's Encrypt is the one I'm thinking about. Yeah, Let's Encrypt. So open connection state. Let's see what it tells you. It returns that there's no network connection for the current file, which means guess what? Quick, I'm gonna test Jesse. Jesse, are you there? If I say get connection state, and it returns a 0, what does this mean? All right, so if there's no connection state, it means the file's running locally, right? Okay, so number one is the connection. The file is not encrypted. There's no it's not encrypted. There's no SSL certificate. 2, for a connection that is encrypted, but for which the SSL certificate is not verified. So when they say is encrypted, and I honestly don't know the answer to this right here, for a connection that is encrypted. So that would imply that there's an SSL certificate. So what this should say is 2 is for an SSL certificate that's on the FileMaker server, but that SSL certificate has not been verified. When you say it that is encrypted, what I think is that SSL or is that EAR, the file? And that EAR is the file's encrypted, but they said connection that is encrypted. So that is very bad writing because it can lead to confusion, because Claris uses the word encrypted all sorts of places, and they're kind of willy-nilly about it. In fact, they don't even really like to use the word EAR. EAR is decidedly an engineering term and a developer term. So this one is aggravating because it caused a lot of confusion with the word encrypted being thrown around. Encrypted's fine, but you've got to always be very clear about that. And then number 3, so this is local file. There's no SSL at all. There's an SSL that's not verified, okay? Because it's expired or you didn't go through the fill process setting up. This one, local file, someone could steal it. This one, someone could read the traffic across the internet and take it apart. This one, someone could do a middleman attack where they put someone in between and you can read your data. It's encrypted, but they could fake it and get the data. This one here is pretty secure. So this is a 3. Like if you were to build a database for stealth bomber blueprints or something, and you really wanted to make sure that the client was secure, the database wouldn't allow the user to do anything unless that equaled, this function here equals 3. If it doesn't equal 3, please throw a dialog saying you're not secure and just exit, quit the application. Okay. Current date, pretty straightforward. We use that all the time. Get current extended privileges. These are the privileges that are returns a list of keywords based upon the account to use it to evaluate the calculation for enabled privileges. So get current. Yeah, so it's going to return all the ones that are turned on, right? So
Wait, isn't that the same as the one up top? I'm confused.
which one is up top?
Get account extended privileges versus get current extended privileges?
Yeah, the question is, where would there be a difference? Anyone want to answer that? I don't know the answer to that.
Well, if you bring up both out of curiosity, like what does it say in like their description? Is it different?
See, this is why having Margaret here, and she's been learning this. She's good. She helps. So I got that one. Here's what we got. So returns a list of keywords based upon the current open file. Returns a list of keywords based on the used to evaluate.
This calculation? So is it calculation only?
For enabled extended. Returns an empty list of the user doesn't have extended privileges assigned for the current database file. So that would return, okay, so keep in mind, returns an empty list if the file is running locally and you've logged onto it locally. Because if you log onto it on the server, you have to, so it has to be sharing in there somewhere, right? You know, FMAP or WebDirect or something, right? So that's if it was running locally. So if you're logged in and running a script and you set with, there it is. This is the edge case right here. This is good. Here's the deal. When you write a script, Jesse, you know about this, right, Jesse? Attention, Jesse, are you there? If you write a script, okay, and the script says delete record, and it deletes a record, right? Go down here and you say delete record. However, dialog off. So you say delete records. However, if you go and you save it, you come over here and you say manage security, and we create the blue art thing here, and I say advancing this, and we'll end with this. This is good right here. This is really good. So I say, come over here to Ken. We're going to edit his. We're going to say records, edit, create and edit in all tables, not delete. So by default, if Ken logs in right now, Ken can never delete a record from here. Even if it deletes up here and he sees it, it won't work. When you get rid of things and they don't work, Claris doesn't remove them off the top. Don't ask me why. They don't remove them off the top. They should be gone. What Claris does is it grays them out. Like, see how show all is grayed out because we're already showing all the records, right? So you say you turn off delete, you can't delete. Then you come over here with a script and you have a script step that says delete. The script is going to be limited to the same rules and regulations that the account is limited by, unless you tell the script to run in God mode. So you're going to right click and you're going to say grant full access privileges.
Wait, so scripts can have independent privilege sets outside of the privilege set you're currently inside of?
Yes, but not any privilege set. You can promote them to God mode. or not promote them to God. That
Okay.
right there should be like God or something, whatever God is for all of you, right? So that's God mode, or basically it means that he's an admin. He's an admin enabled with admin. That little graphic is the super user person, right? So if this is not on, you run this, it's going to say error. This script cannot be performed. You're not allowed to delete records because account privileges doesn't allow. Now, if you turn it on, then it will run. So it allows you to restrict people from ever deleting stuff unless you run them through a scripted process that you have tested and vouched. So as a good developer, you normally always turn off delete. And if you really, really want delete, you're going to do it through a script process. Before that, you're going to say, show dialog, are you really sure? And maybe even when you delete it, you don't really delete it. Maybe you just hide it, like you remove the primary key so it doesn't show up, or you take the record and you move it out of one table into another table, like an old archive table. So knowing that a script can run with 2 different privilege levels, back over here. Now it makes more sense and explains it right here. If you're logged in running a script set with God mode, get extended privileges returns the extended privilege sets for your account. But get current privilege that returns the external set for the admin account because it's running in God mode. So this will return what the script is allowed to run as. This will return what the user actually has, regardless of whether the script is in God mode or not. Does that make sense?
Yes. That's really a fine division.
Well, think about it. If I tell a script to run as God mode, and then while the script's running, you say, give me the extended privileges, it says, yo, you're God. How dumb can you possibly be? That's very frustrating because when we normally call that, we really wanted to know what the user actually had. But the FileMaker, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That makes sense. That's super not obvious until you go digging into the bottom half of the documentation. It tells you.
I know, but that's why we're doing this live stream, because this is good. So yeah, so this is, and I remember this one because when this first came out, yeah, see, this one's newer over here. So get account privileges, get account extended privileges. Yeah, see what happens? They invented this way back in the day. Then what happened is somewhere in FileMaker 9 or 10 or something, they turned on God mode. And then we would ask this thing, hey, what's their privileges? And it says, duh, you're stupid, you're God. And we're like, ow! And so we had to go to Claris and Clay and beg and beg and beg and say, hey, even though we're running as God, because we know we're God, because we told them what they could run as God, when I need to find out what they can really do behind the scenes. And he's like, oh, you didn't tell us you wanted that. So they added this later. That's how that happened. That's literally how that happened.
Okay, cool. That makes more sense.
I remember this being a major problem for me about 15 years ago. That's about when this all happened, 15, 18 years ago.
That would be because 11 came out when I was 13. That was the DevCon I was there for. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Hopefully you folks got value out of that. Tomorrow we're going to probably have we'll be broadcasting from an undisclosed location.
We'll be finishing up the rest of the get functions, I think, right? Because we only got like, what, halfway through?
We're still in A's, Margaret, aren't we in A's?
Oh, never mind. So we'll make whatever progress is possible.
Yeah, somewhere in here is like get foobar is what we're at. We're at foobar. So yeah, we're file locale elements, file path. We're gonna start with the paths. Paths are good ones. We'll do those tomorrow. All right, and then Calvin's coming with Let on Wednesday, and next week Wednesday hopefully it'll be Weil, and then after that he's working on the super audit trail. Lots of really exciting things happening here on the TV. And for those of you who are with us, we appreciate you helping us be viewers and tell people about this because we're trying to help the platform. We want you to be successful. We really do. I want you to be awesome with FileMaker, make great applications within your organization or for your customers, okay? All right, that's it for now. We'll catch you tomorrow, everyone. Thank you.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.